"Get out of my kitchen." Those were the words my daughter-in-law screamed at me in my own house, right in front of a room full of guests. And the worst part, my own son stood there, watching, and instead of stopping her, he started laughing. In that moment, something inside me broke. For years, I had sacrificed everything for that boy, raised him alone after his father passed away, worked day and night just to give him the life he wanted. And now, I was being humiliated in my own home while strangers watched. But what they didn't know was this: I wasn't the weak old woman they thought I was, and the move I made next changed everything. Before we continue, tell me in the comments where you're listening from, and what would you do if your own child laughed while someone disrespected you in your own house? And if you enjoy emotional, powerful stories like this one, make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you never miss the next story. Now let me tell you how everything started. My name is Unheard Whitmore. I'm 68 years old, and I've spent most of my life in a quiet, two-story home just outside Asheville, North Carolina. It's not just a house to me, it's my whole life stitched together in memories. Every corner has a story, every wall has heard my laughter, my prayers, and my silence. I wasn't always alone. My husband, Thomas Whitmore, passed away 24 years ago. At that time, my son was just 9 years old, too young to understand loss, but old enough to feel it. Before he left this world, Thomas made sure of one thing: he put this house in my name. He told me, "Ellie, no matter what happens, this home is yours, a place no one can ever take from you." And I held on to those words like they were the last piece of him I had left. My son, Andrew, he became my whole world after that. I had no time to grieve properly, no time to fall apart, because when I looked into his eyes, I saw fear, confusion, and a child silently asking me not to break. So I didn't. I became stronger than I ever thought I could be. I worked wherever I could, long hours, double shifts, doing anything just to make sure Andrew never felt like he was missing something in life. There were nights I went to bed hungry, just so he could have a full plate. Winters where I wore old, worn-out coats, while he walked out the door in something warm and new. I smiled in front of him and cried where he couldn't see me, because that's what mothers do. We carry the weight so our children don't have to. And every night he would wrap his little arms around me and whisper, "Mom, when I grow up, I'll take care of you." I promise. I held on to that promise like it was my reward for every sacrifice I made. But life has a way of testing the hearts that love the most, and sometimes the ones you give everything to are the ones who forget you first. My son, Andrew, he grew up to be a hardworking man. He got himself a good job at a marketing firm in downtown Asheville. I still remember the day he got hired. He came running through that front door like a little boy again, his eyes shining with pride. "Mom, I did it," he said, and Lord knows I was proud of him. For years, it was just the two of us in that house, quiet, peaceful, familiar, until one evening, everything started to change. Andrew called me that afternoon, his voice filled with excitement. "Mom, I'm bringing someone home today. I want you to meet her." I could hear the happiness in his voice, and it made my heart swell. So I did what I always did. I prepared. I went into the kitchen and started cooking his favorite dishes. Golden roasted chicken, creamy mashed potatoes, buttered green beans, and a fresh apple pie cooling by the window. The kind of meal that fills a home with warmth, the kind that says you're loved without needing words. Once everything was ready, I carefully covered each dish, wiped my hands, and went to my room. I stood in front of the mirror for a moment. I fixed my hair, put on a soft blue dress, and even wore the small pearl necklace Thomas had given me years ago. I don't know why, but I wanted everything to be perfect. When I stepped into the living room, I looked around slowly, adjusting a cushion here, straightening a frame there. My eyes scanned every corner, making sure nothing was out of place. Finally, I paused and took a deep breath and whispered to myself, "Perfect." 5 minutes later, the doorbell rang. My heart skipped. I walked to the door, opened it, and there he was. Andrew stood there with the widest smile, and beside him was her. "Mom, this is Chloe," he said proudly. She was beautiful, confident, with a bright, polished smile that looked like it belonged in a magazine. I smiled warmly. "Welcome, Chloe." We greeted each other, and I stepped aside, letting them in. They sat down in the living room, Andrew close to her, like he didn't want even an inch of space between them. At first, I tried to talk, asked her simple things, where she was from, what she did, but she barely answered. Most of the time, she spoke only to Andrew, laughing softly at his words, her eyes fixed on him like the rest of the room didn't exist. And every now and then, she looked around the house, not with warmth, not with curiosity, but like she was searching for something, measuring something. I can't explain it, but it made my chest feel tight. Being ignored in your own home, it has a quiet kind of pain. Still, I said nothing. When dinner was ready, I called them to the table. I served the food with care, placing each dish in front of them. As I set the roasted chicken in front of Andrew, I smiled gently and said, "This is your favorite. I used to make this every Sunday, remember?" Before he could answer, Chloe turned to him and said, "Really? You never told me that." Andrew just smiled and shrugged his shoulders casually, like it was nothing, like I was nothing. I slowly took my seat. For a moment, I felt embarrassed, like I had said something I shouldn't have. They went back to talking, laughing softly, lost in their own little world. Andrew looked at her with so much love, so much admiration, and I sat there quietly staring at my plate. A small thought crossed my mind. They came here to meet me, didn't they? I took a deep breath, picked up my fork, and started eating. Maybe I was just overthinking. Maybe she was nervous. Maybe I was expecting too much. That's what I told myself, because sometimes it's easier to silence your own pain than to accept it. Months passed, and before I even realized it, 9 months later, Andrew and Chloe got married. The wedding was beautiful, grand, everything a young couple could dream of. White flowers everywhere, soft music playing in the background, guests dressed in their finest clothes, laughing, celebrating, taking pictures like it was a perfect day. And maybe it was, just not for me. I remember walking into that venue quietly, holding my purse a little tighter than usual. I looked around, hoping, maybe just hoping, that my son would come to me first, but he didn't. Everyone seemed busy, important, connected, and I felt like I didn't belong there. They gave me a seat in the last row, far from the stage, far from my son. I sat there surrounded by distant relatives, people who barely even looked at me. Conversations flowed around me, but none of them included me. At one point, I overheard Chloe's mother speaking proudly to someone nearby. "Well, we handled most of the wedding expenses. You know how these things are." I just sat there, quietly listening, because the truth was it wasn't Andrew who paid, and it wasn't them either. It was me. I had given a large part of my savings for that wedding, every dollar I had carefully put aside over the years. But I didn't say a word, not to anyone, not even to my own son. I just sat there, hands folded in my lap, watching the ceremony from a distance. Watching my son, the boy I raised with everything I had, standing there, starting a new life, without even looking back at me. People laughed, clapped, celebrated love. And I smiled too, softly, quietly, like I was just another guest, not his mother, just another guest. And maybe that's what hurt the most. Not the seat in the back, not the whispers, not even being ignored, but the feeling that in my own son's wedding I had become invisible. Still, I said nothing, because a mother's heart learns to stay silent even when it's breaking. After the wedding, I didn't go straight home. I stayed in a small hotel room that night, just me, my thoughts, and the silence I couldn't escape. I remember sitting on the edge of the bed, still in my dress, staring at nothing. And then it all came back. The seat in the last row, the whispers, the way no one looked at me, the way my own son didn't come to me even once. I broke down. Not quietly, not gently. I cried the way a heart cries when it finally can't hold anything in anymore. Tears I had been holding for months, maybe years, just kept falling. I kept asking myself the same question over and over again. Where did I go wrong? That night, sleep didn't come easy, and when it didn't stay long. For a few days after that, life went back to being quiet, too quiet. The house felt empty in a way I couldn't explain, until 3 weeks later, that doorbell rang again. I was sitting in the living room, a book in my hand, a warm cup of coffee resting beside me. For a moment, I thought maybe I imagined it, but then it rang again. I placed the book aside, slowly stood up, and walked to the door. When I opened it, there they were, Andrew and Chloe, standing with their luggage. I blinked, surprised, confused, but I still smiled. Andrew, Chloe, what a surprise. Andrew stepped forward, his voice softer than usual. Mom, can we stay here for a few days? We're going through some financial problems right now. Just until things get better, then we'll leave. Before I could even respond, Chloe added quickly, Yes, Alina, it won't be for long. Just temporary. For a second, I looked at both of them. Then I stepped aside and said gently, You don't need to ask permission. This is your home too. Come in. Maybe that was the moment I should have set boundaries. But a mother's heart doesn't think that way. Chloe worked at a corporate office as a marketing executive. She left early in the morning, always in a hurry, always on the phone, and came back late at night, tired and distant. Andrew was busy too, long hours, meetings, deadlines, and me. I became everything else. Cooking, cleaning, laundry, dishes, groceries. I took care of the house like I always had, but slowly things started to change. After about a month, Chloe's voice began to carry a different tone. One morning she tasted the food and said, Alina, the soup is too salty. I don't know how you didn't notice that. Another day, she picked up her coffee, took one sip and frowned. This is way too bitter. I can't drink this. Sometimes it was the laundry. My dress isn't ironed properly. Sometimes the groceries. You're spending too much money. You really need to manage things better. Little comments, but each one felt like a small cut. And the worst part, it didn't feel like my house anymore. It felt like I was working in someone else's home. Then one day, Chloe came home and said she had quit her job. I'm stressed, Andrew. I need mental peace, she said, dropping her bag on the couch like the world owed her something. And just like that, she stayed home. 6 months passed, 6 long months. Every day was the same. I worked around the house, and Chloe sat comfortably on the couch, watching TV, scrolling on her phone, giving instructions like she belonged there more than I did. One afternoon, while sitting in the living room, Chloe suddenly said, Alina, I think this house needs some changes. The doors, the furniture, everything looks outdated. I looked at her, my heart tightening. I said slowly, carefully, this house is not just a house. Thomas gave it to me with love. Every corner holds memories, Andrew's childhood, our life, our family. It's a home. Before I could say anything more, Andrew spoke from the side, his tone slightly irritated. Mom, don't overreact. She's just concerned about you. I went silent, took a deep breath, and walked to my room because sometimes silence is the only thing left. 3 days later, Chloe announced she was hosting a dinner for her family. At noon, she walked into the house with grocery bags in her hands, moving straight into the kitchen like she owned it. I followed her quietly and asked, Do you need any help? Without even looking at me, she said coldly, No. I want to cook something special for my family, and it's not like I don't know where things are. After all, it's my house. My chest tightened. I stood there, watching her use my pots, my spices, everything I had collected over the years like it meant nothing. Then she pointed toward the door and said sharply, If you really want to help, just stay out of the way. Like I was nothing, like I didn't belong there. I felt something inside me break quietly, and I walked away. 2 hours later, Andrew came home. He looked at me and said, Mom, why aren't you ready? Guests are already here. I looked at him and said softly, This dinner isn't for me. Before I could finish, he cut me off, his voice firm. Mom, please don't start this again. Chloe is happy today. She arranged everything. Don't ruin her mood. And he walked away just like that. I stood there staring at the door he disappeared through. Every word echoed in my chest. I let out a small, broken chuckle and whispered to myself, Don't ruin her mood. I went to my room, changed into a simple, decent dress, and walked back out. In the living room, Chloe's family was already there. Her father, Mr. Harris, her mother, Mrs. Harris, her brother Ethan, and her sister Lily. They were all sitting comfortably, laughing, talking like they belonged, and I stood there for a moment, unsure where I fit. Mrs. Harris looked at me, then smirked slightly and said to Chloe and Andrew, "Well, looks like this house finally has its real owners." I froze. Before I could even process it, Andrew smiled lightly and said, "You're absolutely right. That hurt more than anything." Not her words, his. It felt like someone reached inside my chest and squeezed my heart, but I didn't say anything, not in front of guests. I quietly walked to a corner and sat down. When dinner was ready, Chloe called everyone excitedly. "Come on, everyone, I made everything myself." Her mother smiled proudly. "I already know your cooking is wonderful." Everyone sat at the dining table, laughing, talking, enjoying, and I stood there, looking for a place to sit. There was no chair left, not one. Mrs. Harris let out a small laugh and said, "Oh, looks like there's no room for you." Chloe glanced at me and said casually, "Alina, you can sit in the kitchen. You like that place anyway." My hands went cold. I nodded slightly and walked to the kitchen, sat down alone. The food was right in front of me, but I couldn't eat. From the other room, I could hear laughter, conversations, happiness. And I sat there thinking, how did I become a stranger in my own home? How did I lose my place at my own table? That night, I didn't eat. I went to my room, closed the door, and sat on the bed. Andrew's words kept repeating in my mind, "You're absolutely right." I pressed my hand against my chest, trying to hold myself together, and then my phone rang. I wiped my tears, picked it up, and looked at the screen. It was David Carter, my husband Thomas's old friend and our family attorney, a man I trusted for years. Confused, I answered, "Hello, Elena," he said gently. "It's David." We exchanged greetings, but something in his voice felt different. "Serious, Elena, can we meet tomorrow?" he asked. A small frown formed on my face. "Is everything all right?" He took a deep breath before speaking. "There's something important I found out, something you need to know." My heart started beating faster. "David, you're scaring me," he replied calmly. "Don't worry, everything will be fine, but I can't explain this over the phone. And Elena, don't tell anyone about this. Come alone." Silence filled the room. "Okay," I finally said. After the call ended, I stared at my phone for a long time, my reflection faintly visible on the dark screen. I whispered to myself, "Now what is waiting for me?" I lay down slowly, staring at the ceiling. My mind filled with questions, fear, and something I couldn't quite understand yet. And somewhere between those thoughts, I fell asleep, not knowing that everything was about to change. The next morning, I woke up earlier than usual. Sleep hadn't really rested me, but I got up anyway. I made myself a simple breakfast, toasted bread, a little butter, and a cup of coffee. I sat at the kitchen table, staring quietly into the steam rising from my cup. The house was still, too still, but the mess from last night, it was exactly the same. Dishes piled up, crumbs on the table, chairs out of place. For the first time in years, I hadn't cleaned it. I heard footsteps behind me. Andrew, he walked in, looked around, and frowned. "Mom, you didn't clean the house, it looks dirty." I didn't turn to look at him. I took a slow sip of my coffee and said calmly, "I'm busy. I have other things to do." There was a pause, then he said, almost confused, "Then who's going to do it?" That's when I turned and looked straight at him. "Chloe will," I said quietly. "If she can cook, she can clean the mess she created." The look on his face, surprise, almost disbelief, like he didn't recognize the woman sitting in front of him. "Mom, but she," I raised my hand gently, stopping him. "I'm getting late," I said, standing up. "I have work to do." I picked up my handbag and walked out. For once, I didn't look back. When I reached the office of David Carter, my hands felt cold, even though the sun was warm outside. I knocked on the door. "Come in," he said. I stepped inside. He stood up immediately, concern already visible on his face. "Elena, David." We greeted each other, and he motioned for me to sit. The moment I sat down, I felt it. Something wasn't right. "What is it, David?" I asked quietly. He took a deep breath, leaned forward, and said words I never thought I would hear in my life. "Elena, Andrew tried to refinance your property using fake documents." For a moment, I didn't understand. My heart started pounding. "What do you mean?" I asked, my voice trembling. 3 days ago," he continued, "I received a call from the bank. They were asking about documents I supposedly certified for refinancing your house." He shook his head slowly. Documents I have never seen. My fingers tightened around my purse. Someone forged your signature, a lien, and submitted papers claiming you gave Andrew power of attorney over the house. It felt like the air left my lungs. I couldn't breathe. David's voice continued, steady, serious. The bank got suspicious. The numbers didn't add up, so they contacted me to verify. I stopped everything immediately and opened an investigation. He placed a file in front of me. Elena, the documents have Andrew's signature all over them. He tried to put the house in his name to take out a $200,000 loan. $200,000. My house, the house Thomas left for me, worth around $500,000, and my own son tried to put a lien on it, without my knowledge, using fraud. How could he? I whispered, but deep down I already knew. Chloe, I said softly, almost to myself. David nodded. There's more, he added carefully. I looked into their finances. Andrew and Chloe are in serious debt. Almost $300,000, credit cards, personal loans, even a luxury car they can't afford. Everything started to make sense. Her comments about the house, the way they looked at each other, the way they treated me, it wasn't just disrespect, it was calculation. David leaned forward again, his voice softer now. Elena, we can press charges. This is serious. Fraud, forgery, this could send him to prison. I didn't answer. I just sat there looking at those papers, at the forged signature, at the proof that my own son had betrayed me. At what point did I lose him? After a long silence, I finally said, "Not yet." David looked at me carefully. "I want to see how far they're willing to go," I continued. "But I need you to protect everything, every property." He nodded immediately. "It's already done. I've placed alerts everywhere. They can't touch anything without me knowing." I took a deep breath. "For now, I'll watch." He gave me a concerned look, but said nothing more. When I returned home that afternoon, I walked in quietly. Chloe was sitting on the couch eating chips, watching TV like she didn't have a care in the world. She looked at me and said casually, "Where were you?" I stopped, looked straight into her eyes, and said calmly, firmly, "I'm not answerable to you." The silence that followed was different. She was shocked. I could see it, but I didn't wait. I walked past her and went to my room. That night, I sat alone, thinking about everything, the betrayal, the lies, the son I raised, and the stranger he had become. Tears slipped down my face quietly, but then I heard Thomas's voice in my memory. "Elena, no matter what happens, you are stronger than you think." I wiped my tears, sat up straight, and said firmly, "I will not let them take my home. This is my house, my memories, Thomas's love. I won't let them steal it." The next few days were different. I stopped doing everything for them. No cooking, no cleaning, no laundry. I was no longer their maid, and they noticed. After about a week, Andrew came into my room. He sat beside me on the bed. "Mom, is everything okay?" I looked at him for a few seconds, studying his face. Then I said calmly, "I'm fine. What could possibly be wrong with me?" He hesitated. "No, you've been acting different. You're not even doing house chores anymore." I gave a small sigh. "I'm just tired, Andrew. You know my age. I need some rest." The moment I said that, I saw it, relief on his face. "Oh, yeah, you're right, Mom. You really need rest." That's when I knew he wasn't there for me. He wanted something. I looked at him closely and asked, "What do you want, Andrew?" He blinked, surprised. "How did you?" I gave a faint, tired smile. "I'm your mother. I've known you since you were a child. I know you better than you know yourself." He let out a nervous chuckle. "Mom, me and Chloe were thinking." I stayed silent, waiting. "This house is very big for you alone. Maybe it would be better if what?" I interrupted, my eyes locking with his. He swallowed. "Well, there are some very nice nursing homes, places where you'd be more comfortable with people your age, medical care, nursing homes." I felt my heart tighten. "So who would pay for this home?" I asked calmly. "Well, we could sell this house, and with that money, this house is in my name, Andrew." I cut him off, my voice firm. "And it is not for sale." His expression changed instantly. Panic, then annoyance. "Mom, don't be selfish. Think about your well-being. You're getting older. This house is too much for you." Selfish. My own son calling me selfish. "This conversation is over, Andrew," I said quietly. "You can leave." He stood up, frustrated. Someday you'll understand this is for your own good. And he walked out, slamming the door behind him. That night, I went to the kitchen to get some water, but before I entered, I heard their voices. Andrew's. I talked to her, but she didn't agree. Chloe's voice came next, sharp, frustrated. Then what are we going to do, Andrew? If we don't pay the debt on time, we're in serious trouble. Don't stress, he replied. I'll find a way. Then he said something that made my hand freeze. I don't know what Mom is going to do with this house. It's not like she'll take it to the grave. The bottle in my hand almost slipped. Chloe scoffed. She's being selfish. Something inside me collapsed, quietly, completely. I stepped back before they could see me, went to my room. Sat on the bed, and for the first time, I didn't hold my tears back. They fell one after another as his words echoed in my mind. She's being selfish. She won't take it to the grave. How low will you go, Andrew? I whispered. I never thought my own son. After a long time, I wiped my tears. No, I said softly but firmly. I cannot be weak. I picked up my phone and called David Carter. We spoke for 10 minutes. When the call ended, I reached for a photo frame beside my bed. It was Andrew as a child, smiling, innocent, the boy I gave my whole life to. I looked at that picture and whispered, "You didn't think about what comes next, did you?" I placed the frame back slowly. Lay down and closed my eyes, because now I wasn't just a mother anymore. I was someone who had finally seen the truth, and I was ready. The next morning, after everything that had happened, I knew I needed to speak to someone who truly knew me, someone who knew my past, my struggles, my secrets. So I called my brother, Samuel Parker. Samuel lived in another state, down in Texas, and he was the only person in this world who knew the full story of my life, the sacrifices I had made, the pain I had carried quietly for years. The phone rang twice before he picked up. "Hey there, Alina," he said with his usual cheerful voice. "How's my big sister doing?" For a moment, I couldn't answer. My throat tightened. "I'm fine," I said softly. There was silence on the other end for a second. Then his voice changed. "Alina, what's wrong? You sound strange. Something ain't right." I took a deep breath, closed my eyes, and told him everything, everything. About Andrew, about Chloe, about the forged documents, about the debt, about the way they had been treating me in my own home. By the time I finished, Samuel exploded. "That bastard," he shouted so loudly I had to pull the phone away from my ear. "After everything you did for that boy, Alina, you need to kick him out of your house right now. That ungrateful punk doesn't deserve your love. Throw both of them out." I stayed quiet for a moment, then said calmly, "No, not yet. Not yet," Samuel snapped. "Sis, what are you waiting for?" I stared out the window. "I need them to see who I really am," I said slowly. "I need them to understand the magnitude of their mistake." Samuel sighed heavily. "I told you on his wedding day," he muttered. "That girl, Chloe, something about her didn't sit right with me. I told you to set boundaries." "You were right," I admitted quietly. Then he suddenly asked, "You still haven't told Andrew about the properties you inherited from Dad, have you?" I shook my head even though he couldn't see me. "No, not yet, but I will tell them soon." Samuel's voice softened. "Don't worry, sis, everything's gonna be all right. I'm coming there tomorrow." "No," I said quickly, "you don't need to bother yourself. I'll handle it. You sure about that?" "Yes," I replied firmly. "If I need help, I know you're just one call away." He sighed again. "All right, but you call me the second things go sideways." "You hear me? I will." Then we ended the call. For the next few days, the house was quiet, no arguments, no drama, and that's when I noticed something strange. Their behavior changed. Suddenly, they became very polite, too polite. Every morning, Andrew came into my room with flowers. "Good morning, Mom," he'd say with a forced smile. After work, he would come straight to my room again just to greet me. And Chloe, oh, she had turned into the sweetest woman alive, cooking meals for me, making coffee, asking every few minutes, "Mom, do you need anything?" Mom, interesting, not Alina anymore. One evening we were sitting at the dining table. Chloe placed a bowl of soup in front of me and said with a bright smile, "Mom, try this soup. I made it using a new recipe specially for you." I looked at her. "Mom, huh? Just a few weeks ago, I was a leaner. Now suddenly I was mom. While eating, I noticed Chloe subtly signaling something to Andrew under the table. Andrew looked tense. "What's wrong, Andrew?" I asked calmly. He forced a smile. "Nothing, Mom, I'm fine." But before he could say more, Chloe jumped in. "Well, actually, we're facing some financial problems." I looked directly at my son. Andrew cleared his throat. "Mom, we think it would be best if you considered selling this house." There it was, finally. "It would help us," he continued. "And honestly, the house is too big for one person, too expensive to maintain. You could move somewhere smaller, something easier to manage, and keep the money from the sale for yourself." How generous. I folded my hands calmly. "And where would you two live?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. Andrew glanced at Chloe before answering. "Well, we could find our own place using our share of the money." Ah, there it was. I slowly lifted my eyes and looked at him coldly. "This is my house," I said firmly. "And I believe I already gave you my answer, but since you seem to need reminding, my answer is no." Both of them froze, shock, then anger. Andrew suddenly stood up. "Mom, don't be selfish." The word hit me like a slap. "But I didn't show it. I'm not being selfish," I replied calmly. "Then why can't you understand?" he shouted. "If we don't pay our debts, we're going to be in serious trouble." I looked him straight in the eye. "You're the one who created that problem," I said quietly. "Now solve it yourself." Chloe slammed her hand on the table. "What kind of mother are you?" she snapped. "I have never seen such a selfish mother in my life." She continued saying more rude things, insulting me without hesitation. And my son, he just sat there, silent, watching. That hurt more than her words. "Enough," I said firmly, standing up. I looked directly at Chloe. "I don't need you to tell me what kind of mother I am. And I certainly don't need a certificate from you." Then I turned toward Andrew. "My decision is final. I will not sell this house." I started walking away, but behind me Andrew shouted, "You'll regret this." I stopped, turned around slowly, and said coldly, "I already regret letting you stay here." The silence that followed was deafening. They stared at me like they had never seen me before. I walked to my room. Once inside, I picked up my phone and sent a message. Then I opened an old photo album from my drawer. Pictures of Andrew as a little boy, running in the backyard, holding a baseball glove, smiling with that innocent face. My eyes filled with tears. "I never thought one day I would have to make this decision about you," I whispered. "You thought your mother was weak, but you were wrong." I wiped my eyes. That night, I barely slept. The next morning, I woke up late. Around 12:30 p.m. As I walked downstairs, I heard noise in the living room. When I reached the bottom of the stairs, I stopped. Chloe was cleaning the house. Andrew was helping her. And in the kitchen, Mrs. Harris, Chloe's mother, was cooking. I frowned. "What's going on?" I asked. Andrew looked at me coldly. "Today is Chloe's birthday," he said. "We're hosting a family dinner." I nodded, made myself a cup of coffee, then went back to my room. But all day, I kept checking my phone every 15 minutes, waiting. That night, I got dressed, a simple but elegant outfit, and walked downstairs with a calm, confident expression. The house was full. Chloe's parents, Mr. and Mrs. Harris, her brother Ethan, her sister Lily, and uncle and aunt, cousins, friends. Not a single person greeted me. I quietly walked into the kitchen. Chloe was putting food into serving pots. When she saw me, she rolled her eyes. "What are you doing here, a leaner?" she said with annoyance. "Just leave, let me work in peace." I looked at her calmly. "I'm just making green tea." Suddenly she snapped. "Can't you understand simple English? Get out of my kitchen before I say something I'll regret." At that moment, I heard clapping, slow, mocking clapping. Andrew walked into the kitchen laughing. "That's right, honey," he said. "Finally, someone put her in her place. Bravo." My heart shattered. I looked at him for a few seconds, the boy I had raised, laughing at my humiliation. But then something inside me changed. "Enough," I said, raising my hand. My voice was calm but powerful. "I never expected this from you, Andrew." By then, everyone had gathered in the kitchen doorway, watching. "You're my son," I continued. "How can you treat me like this? Your wife insults me, and instead of stopping her, you clap and laugh." Andrew shrugged. "Why should I stop her?" he said coldly. Why should I care about you when you don't care about me? I stared at him. You think I don't care about you? My voice trembled. You were 10 years old when your father died. I raised you alone. I worked 2 jobs to fulfill every wish you had. Your birthdays, your school trips, your clothes, your dreams. The room had gone silent. I worked with back pain, with fever, with exhaustion, because if I missed work, they would cut my salary. Andrew looked down slightly. I stayed awake countless nights when you were sick, I continued, holding your hand and praying you would get better. Chloe rolled her eyes. So what? She said. Every mother does that. I chuckled softly. You're right, I said calmly. Every mother does that. Then I looked at her, but not every mother gets humiliated by the child she sacrificed everything for. Andrew suddenly snapped. Then why didn't you help me when I needed it most? I turned to him slowly. If you had come to me once and told me the truth, I would have helped you at any cost. How? He shouted. You refused to sell the house. I chuckled again. If I could pay for your entire wedding, do you really think I couldn't help you with $300,000? The room went dead silent. Andrew's eyes widened. How do you know that amount? I stepped closer to him. You think I don't know what you did? I looked directly into his eyes. You tried to refinance my property using fake documents. His face turned pale. You forged my signature, submitted papers claiming I gave you power of attorney over my house. Gasps filled the room. Andrew and Chloe stood there frozen, and everyone watching realized something very serious had just been revealed. After my words echoed through the kitchen, the room went dead silent. Everyone was staring at Andrew and at me. Andrew's face turned pale. His lips trembled, his voice shaky when he finally spoke. Mom, what are you even saying? I don't understand. I didn't make any fake documents. I didn't forge your signature. You've got this all wrong. I looked at him for a long moment, then let out a quiet, bitter chuckle. You know something, Andrew? I said slowly. When I first found out, I said the exact same thing. I crossed my arms. I told David Carter there had to be some kind of mistake, that my son would never do something like that. My voice turned firm. But there was no mistake. Why did you do it? Why didn't you come to me like you always used to? Why didn't you ask your own mother for help? Then I added, sharper now, oh wait, why would you? You were already doing whatever I pointed toward Chloe. She told you to do. Andrew shifted, clearly uncomfortable. All eyes were on him, his in-laws, his friends, everyone. His embarrassment quickly turned into anger. So what else was I supposed to do? He snapped. His voice echoed through the room. I knew you'd never agree to sell this house, and I needed money fast. He let out a dry, sarcastic laugh. And what did you say earlier? That I should have asked you for help. I did come to you. I asked you to sell the house. And what did you do? You shut me down, said you couldn't sell it because of Dad's memories. He shook his head. Dad's been gone for years, Mom. We can't keep living our lives for someone who's dead. That hit deep. I felt it in my chest. I stared at him, hurt written all over my face. Hearing him talk about his father, about Thomas Whitmore, like that's when it truly sank in. The son I raised, he wasn't standing in front of me anymore. This man was a stranger. I took a slow breath. Why do you think I couldn't help you without selling this house? I asked quietly. He frowned, confused. You know I paid for your entire wedding, and I didn't sell the house for that either. Andrew stared at me, thinking. Then I gave a small, knowing smile. Don't hurt yourself thinking too hard. You're not gonna figure it out. Chloe crossed her arms, annoyed. Then how did you pay for all of that? She asked. I turned to her. Well, that's the first real question you've asked tonight. Then I looked back at Andrew. This house isn't the only thing I own. The room went silent again. I have other properties. Andrew blinked. You've got to be kidding me. I shook my head. Nope, not kidding, he whispered. How is that even possible? I inherited them, I said. From my father, your grandfather. I glanced around the room. Restaurants, beach houses, and a few more investments. You could have heard a pin drop. Andrew and Chloe stood frozen. Even Mr. Harris, Mrs. Harris, Ethan, and Lily looked stunned. Andrew spoke under his breath. Why didn't you ever tell me? A sad smile crossed my face. Because I didn't want you to love me for my money. My voice softened. I wanted you to love me because I'm your mother. I stepped closer. You remember when I stopped working before you graduated? He nodded slowly. That's when I already had everything. But I kept it from you because I wanted you to build your own life, stand on your own 2 feet. I paused, and honestly, I think I did the right thing. He looked confused. Because if I hadn't hidden it, I wouldn't be seeing this side of you right now. Andrew rushed forward. Mom, I'm sorry. I didn't understand. I messed up. I shouldn't have treated you like that. He reached for my hand. I stepped back immediately. Don't, I said sharply. Don't touch me. Chloe jumped in. Alina, we didn't mean to hurt you. We were just under a lot of stress. Before I could respond, Mrs. Harris stepped forward. Alina, honey, they're just kids. You should forgive them. I let out a short laugh and turned to her. Would you forgive them if your own child treated you like garbage? I asked. She went quiet. Then I added, and please don't tell me what to do. I remember exactly what you said. This house finally has its real owner. She looked down, embarrassed. Right then the front door opened. David Carter walked in, followed by 2 cops. He gave me a small nod. Alina, we're good. Andrew turned, confused. What is going on? Why are the cops here? Then he looked at me, panic setting in. Mom, what are you doing? I held his gaze. They're here to arrest you. His face went completely white. Arrest me? Mom, please don't do this. I'm your son. I didn't commit fraud. You can't deny it, I said calmly. We've got the forged documents, the bank manager's statement, security footage from the bank. He went silent. Chloe stepped forward quickly. Alina, please, we're sorry. Her parents joined in. Alina, let's talk about this. Don't do something you can't take back. They're young, but I had already made my decision. I looked at the officers. Go ahead. The cops stepped forward and cuffed Andrew and Chloe. They started yelling, begging, but it didn't change anything. They were escorted out. Chloe's family followed behind, shaken and quiet. Within minutes, the house was silent again. I turned to David Carter. Handle the rest. He nodded. I've got it. Then he left. I faced the remaining guests. Thank you for coming. But the show's over. You can head out now. One by one, they left. Soon it was just me, alone. I stood there for a moment, looking around my home. I took a deep breath, then walked upstairs. In my bedroom, I picked up a photo of Thomas Whitmore. I looked at him and whispered, I did it, Thomas. I protected our home. My eyes filled with tears. But I think I lost our son. I swallowed hard. But maybe this was the only way. If I didn't stop him today, tomorrow, he might have done something even worse. I placed the frame back gently. Then I lay down. And that night, for the first time in a long, long while, I slept in peace. Because there was no one left in that house to disrespect me ever again. Love and sacrifice don't mean weakness. Sometimes people will try to take advantage of your kindness, even your own family. Standing up for yourself and protecting what's yours is not selfish, it's strength. Never let anyone disrespect you in your own home or life. Thank you so much for listening to my story. If you enjoyed it, please like this video and subscribe to the channel for more emotional and powerful stories. Don't forget to share your thoughts in the comments. I love hearing from all of you.